During the course of a spiritual awakening, you'll find that pangs and moments of feeling lonely or that feeling of loneliness are amplified. Now, what exactly is loneliness? And even of those of you who are not going through a spiritual awakening, you've not gone through a Kundalini awakening, you've not gone through any of this, but just generally in life, at some point or the other, we experience a feeling of I'm lonely, a feeling of I need somebody, a feeling of I need to know who I am through somebody else because I've never really known myself other than through somebody else. From the moment that we are born, when we start our journey as infants to toddlers to children to teenagers to adolescents and the rest of it, how do we measure who we are? We have always ever experienced who we are based off of the feedback that we're getting from society. It started off from our parents. Our parents projected something. Now, as the feedback comes to us, we absorb it and we say, oh, so that's my personality. This is what I'm like. And when you go through your spiritual awakening, you'll want to dissect it and you'll want to go beyond that feedback, beyond what you imagined or what you perceived your personality to be like, who you are to be like, beyond the perception of another. This is where so many of you will want to go through inner child healing, and this is what we call that the personality goes through a deconstruction. The first part of that deconstruction will be deconstructing that which we thought we were based off of another's perception. And therefore, when what someone else, like say for example, let's start off with our caregivers. Now, if they are saying, this is what your personality is, this is what you are, and if you experience that this is what you are, and throughout your life you've been experiencing that, and that what was projected to you as being you and what is actually you, if those two were meeting, it is likely that you would have then never felt that you're missing something. Right? But very likely is when whatever is being presented to us. A simple example, if your child presents in a certain way, you are going to take that information and label that being that this child is X, Y, or Z, that this child has this sort of a personality, or this child has this kind of a character, this is their trait, this is what they're like, these are their likes, dislikes, la 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 la, and the list goes on. When that child grows up, mostly the child into their adult life will work off of that initial mirroring done to them as being who they are. Now, when you go through a spiritual awakening, not only are you deconstructing that, then you go through your dark night, you go through a period of who am I without the point of reference? Who am I when I have no mirror, when all I can see in the mirror is nothing? Who am I and how do I project myself? Right? Now, that period of loneliness that a lot of us go through, regardless of what the reference was made, right? What it was that was projected as being you, you'd have gone through a period of disconnect or a period of I feel disconnected or I feel lonely. You feel lonely, you feel alone. That loneliness that we feel is when we're no longer feeling the connection to us. If you were relying on a connection outside of you so that you can make the connection inside of you, without the connection outside of you, we then feel that we've made no connection. So when in a spiritual awakening, you remove that externalizing, that need for validation, or you're no longer waiting for something on the outside to build the bridge to connect you to you, you're then left on your own devices to build that bridge to connect you to you. How do you connect you to you, and how do you cross that bridge? That period of loneliness is exactly that. It gives you almost a stepping stone into then meeting you. Yeah, that period of loneliness is essential. A lot of us will go through life when there's a whiff of loneliness in the air, which is churning inside because there is that disconnect. But we'll immediately fill it up with something or the other. It might be a person, it might be an outing, there'll be so many things that will distract us from this loneliness that is almost always there, unless what has been mirrored to you was a perfect image of you as the personality, the persona, and beyond you, which is the whole of you. Highly unlikely that that whole of you is what was mirrored back to you. It is why even with the best of mirroring, the best of examples on the outside that would have given us a perfect mirror, we would still be missing something, and we would still go through that loneliness, which we will not feel unless we give ourselves that space to feel that loneliness. A spiritual awakening is exactly that vessel or that vehicle through which you're able to confront, feel, integrate, assimilate, and fully embrace that loneliness. It is in an embracing that loneliness that you start to then try to meet yourself, try to know yourself without a mirror. Yeah, this is where now when your false relationships break away, your friendships break away, when you have no form of knowing, how am I? Knowing, how am I doing? How am I doing in relation to others? Yeah? How am I doing in another's? Who am I in another's projection, in another's point of view? So some people say, oh, you're very generous, or you're very kind. Oh, I am kind, and therefore, who am I? I am kind. Now, when you break away that mirror, you break away that person or that conduit, that there is no more bridges left through which you can work yourself to you and to know yourself. And this is where, folks, in your spiritual awakening, you will then, as you advance in it, stumble upon another truth or another experience that we can only really know ourselves on the outside through the experience of us in another or in an experience, simply just experience. So we are here to know us. Now that knowing of us eventually moves away from I know myself as being like this or being like that, Because all of the attributes that are based on the concept of I or the concept of who am I will eventually fall off, because when that concept drops, then you're able to answer that question, and then the game starts again. Then you put on another garb and then you start again. And this time when you start again, you're conscious of everything behind that loneliness and why that loneliness is so essential. Loneliness, if embraced, can become an ally, can become a tool for great transformation, can become your stepping stone into meeting yourself unhinged, into meeting yourself without a conduit, into meeting yourself in layers even. First, you might meet yourself as you were without the point of reference or without the validation. What would you have amounted to? What would have been your personality? What would have been your likes and dislikes? Yeah, to be very simple about this, who would have you been as a personality if you didn't have a mirror? So how would you be? Yeah, would you like certain things or not like certain things? How do we begin to form a liking or a disliking without a comparator, without the other, without someone outside of us? In a spiritual awakening, everything on the outside of us starts to come back in. When this comes back in, whether it's personality, all of these things start to go to the point that finally, when it has all gone, you realize that, right, I'm not the personality, yet I can be all of these things. So first you're going to find out the true mirror. Was the mirror that I had initially a projection of the mirror itself? So was the mirror itself flawed in what I then took on as being me? Now this is where your vasanas, this is where your preconditioning, your preconceptions, your conditioned existence comes in. So those were the conditions within which your environment, yeah? So that's how you grew in all of that. Now, if those were not the conditions and there were no conditions and the mirror was clear, would you still have seen what you have seen so far? When you take away all of that conditioning, what do you then have left? What will you see as your reflection in that? So if you have a clear mirror now, what reflection are you going to see? Are you going to see your body and all else that comes with it? What else are you going to see? Right? So that point of loneliness, folks, is an extremely important point, because we feel lonely when there is a disconnect to us, when we are feeling disconnected to self. We are feeling disconnected to self when either the mirroring on the outside is not reflecting the inside, yeah, or we have run away with whatever has been mirrored to us as being the inside, and therefore taken on a garb, and then the inside is crying out aloud saying, you forgot all about me, this is who I am, I'm not the garb. So think about it, folks, these moments of loneliness, rather than trying to find a way of filling that, try to find a way of embracing that and seeing, where do I feel disconnected with myself? And can I meet myself without the bridge? Can I still feel connected to me without a connection to you? Yeah? Can we still be connected in us without the connection outside? Or will we always need to feel connected to each other in order to hold the connection to ourselves? Lots and lots of love. We will be back on this topic. Take care.